Hey, you have to bear with me a little bit on this video because there's going to be quite a chunk to go through, so this might take a little while. So if you, depending on what platform you're looking at this, you might be able to stick it onto double speed and maybe eke through it a little bit quicker than half the time if you've got that capacity to do it. I'm going to go through a pretty significant update that we've just done. Now, some of you will already know that previously we were displaying force, not power, and then we updated the platform to power. And we did that for a reason, because there's a lot of, particularly in the world of triathlon, there's already a good understanding of measuring power on the bike in watts. And we thought it was important that triathletes in particular could understand and compare what's going on in the water with what happens on the bike. Now, in doing so, we actually lost a little bit of sensitivity, I should say, in some of the areas by looking at power, not force. So what we've now done is we've now created a preference where you can choose whether I want to look at force settings or power settings. So before I go any further, I'll just say this. If you're a triathlete or if you're a lower level swimmer, you might choose to turn this off right now, because frankly what I'm going to go into is not too complicated, but it's probably too much for you. Your system will default to showing your data in power, in watts. And like I say, if you're a triathlete or a general swimmer like me, that will be sufficient and everything will be fine. If on the other hand you're a semi-elite or elite level coach, college or athlete, it probably wouldn't hurt just to stick around and get a little bit of an understanding of what we've done, why we've done it, and how it can affect you. Now, of course, triathletes are welcome to stay here too, and as general swimmers, you're more than welcome to stay and listen if you've got a level of interest in this stuff. But anyway, I'll get into it. So what you can see here now is this is our normal current view of looking at stroke rate in strokes per minute and looking at power versus time and power in watts. Very simple. Now, if we go into our settings tab down here, and in the settings tab, if I go to account, you'll see that we've now got a new tab, preferences. And when I click on preferences, in here I can make some changes. I can change my stroke rate to the American view, which is how long in seconds each stroke takes. And I can change my power metric into a force metric in newtons. So I'll just give a very quick recap. Hang on, I'll just save this preference. And then back to my dashboard. And then let it load. We're doing a bunch of updates at the moment. So I'm going to go to one particular swim that I'd like to focus on in this comparison, because I'm going to do a comparison. And I'll just give you one very quick sort of background. I've done this before, so for you, if you've heard this before, I'm sorry, you're going to hear it again. If you haven't, this might be interesting. In the center of the O is a pressure sensor. There's one in the center and one on the side, and those measure the pressure that we're pushing through the hands in kilopascals. What we then do is we combine that pressure reading with the surface area of the hand, and we're able to display the amount of force you're pushing in newtons. Then when we take that force in newtons and combine it with the speed that the hand is moving in whatever direction, then we can convert the force in newtons to power in watts. Now, the reason I'm explaining this is because when you look at and you compare force and power profiles, you're going to see them change. And the reason they're changing is because in the power view, we're including speed of the hand. Where this becomes relevant, particularly, is in the glide phase, because in the glide phase, the hand is moving very slowly. And we're just talking specifically about freestyle at this stage, but of course the principle relates to all strokes. But in the glide phase of the freestyle, the hand is moving very slowly. Ergo, we lose a lot of sensitivity when we're looking at a power view as opposed to a force view. Now don't panic, because I'm going to show you side by side the same swim, and we'll alternate between the two, and you'll be able to see how those changes manifest. And then we'll talk about what that means. So what I've got here is we've got, like I said, we've got here in force and in the stroke rate in seconds per stroke. Very simple. Now here I've already loaded the same swim in, it's in force and strokes per minute, so I'm going to go in and change the settings in here to power and save that. Back to our dashboard, and we can go back to that same swim we were looking at, just so I can put them side by side, because I think it will be a better view for you guys to be able to look at each of these swims side by side. So power, strokes per minute, force, strokes per second. So the two things you'll notice is let's talk about our strokes per minute. As our stroke rate declines, our strokes per minute per second, seconds per stroke inclines. So we slow it down, it takes longer for us to do each stroke. That's simple. Then when we look at our force here, and we're looking at the left-right balance in each of the laps, and then when I go back to the power view, you'll see it changes. And the reason it changes is, again, because we're including the speed of the hand. And when we include the speed of the hand, we're driving more power. If we take that hand speed out and we're only interested in newtons, then we end up with this. So you can get two very different perspectives, but that's just the start. If we go to the force field, and what I particularly want to focus on is the hand drag, because the hand drag is when we're gliding very slowly. So if we're looking at the force view and we're looking at the hand drag here of 2.4%, let's see where that is. It's the right hand, as you can see, is 4.1, and the left hand is only 0.6. So we've got hardly any hand drag on the left, but we've got a big chunk on the right, and that should be reflected when we go into our force versus time chart. And you can see exactly in here, because if I blow this up, and we'll just have a look at the early strokes here, you can see, in fact, I'm going to turn the left off. Let's turn the left off, and we'll just concentrate on the right. You can see in here very clearly, this is our recovery, this is the start of the glide, and as we're gliding, the fingers are turning up. You'll find the elbow will be dropping, the fingers will be turning up, and we're pushing at the water like this, which is why we've got negative propulsion throughout the glide phase. That's clear, you can see it in each of these strokes. Happy days. Let's go to the power view, and we'll do the same thing. We're going to isolate the right hand, and you can see it's very different. It's very different. You know, there's a little bit there, it's coming up, a tiny little bit there, but when I bounce in between the two, so you're going to see things in the force versus time chart that's going to enable you to really dig into some really finite stuff that you don't see in the power chart. Now, the shape of each of these, of the propulsion in each of these strokes, isn't really changing. You know, I mean, there's a few little changes, as you can see, and I better make sure I've got, yeah, there's a breakout. So we'll go from stroke 1, do the same thing here, so we make sure we're looking at everything the same. There's stroke 1. So you'll see that the shape of the propulsion really doesn't change very much. It's the key difference here is in the hand drag and what's going on in the hand drag. And this can be really insightful, particularly at the most elite level, when we want to understand exactly what's going on with hand drag in the glide phase. So, like normal, we can stick our vertical on as well. let's have a look over here and let's see if we see any difference in the vertical. There's a bit of difference. It's not much, but you can see here, you know, because we're looking at force, we're not taking hand speed into it. So you can see the amount of downward force that we're generating here. Whereas when we go into the power view, it's not much, because in the glide that hand is really barely moving. So even though it's generating the same amount of force vertically, the hand speed is very low, so it's not showing up in the power curve. And this is why I'm saying to you that when you're at an elite level or you're an elite coach, I think it's really important that you've got the capacity to say, you know what, I want to focus on my force versus time. I want to focus on what's being generated through the force without it being dumbed down with the hand speed being added to it, and get really comfortable in here when it comes to technique. When we're looking at pure brute power, different story. We go to the power chart. So look, I think this is a really important component. You should have noticed also we've now got the capacity to add hand speed, and the hand speed is critical when we're looking at how we're generating that propulsion and what's impacting the generation of that propulsion. In fact, I'm just going to look at a couple of these here. You know, here's a really good one. So here's the recovery, and you can see we're peaking the recovery hand speed there in the middle of the recovery. It drops down, and we then hit the water for the glide. We're gliding as it slows down. Then it starts to accelerate. And we've got right at that point on the hand speed, we've got a drop in hand speed, as you can see, just after the point where we're also dropping our propulsion. And it's not unusual to see a connection between the hand slowing down and the propulsion dropping. And you can see that pattern that's happening with this swimmer on each of these. Accelerate, drops, accelerate, finish, recovery. So your ability to overlay the hand speed, and in fact, let's even go to the last chart. Again, we're on force versus time. We'll pick one of these, and you can see here the connection between the speed of the hand. Let's have a look where we are. That's where we're getting maximum propulsion with the hand right here. And then we go a little bit further, and that's where the hand speed starts to slow down. I might just pop on the lateral and see if we can see. Oh yeah, this is beautiful. This one's perfect, because you can really see what's happening in here. Right at this point there, over here, you can see we're going from outward facing hand to inward facing hand. So that's where the hand is rotating, it's rolling, it's going out, rolls, and then comes in, out, rolls, and then moves in. And as it starts to move in here, it's also slowing down. So not only is that force or power being redirected inwards instead of backwards, the hand is also slowing down and having a little bit of a holiday. And then when we come through to about here, now we're getting, it's accelerated again. As it comes in, rotates and pushes back, then it's getting a kick of acceleration, another kick. And you know, what we're looking at in here is this valley of lost propulsion. So I've gone a bit further than I intended. I'm sorry this has taken so long. I hope it hasn't got into too deeply, but it doesn't hurt to understand what's behind all this stuff, the difference between force and power, and how you can flick between, you can set your preferences, but one or the other. Likewise, your stroke rate, whether you want to see it in strokes per, in how many seconds per stroke or strokes per minute, which changes on whichever continent. The Americans like the seconds per stroke. Most of the rest of the world is looking at strokes per minute. It's all there. And last thing you can do too, if you haven't seen it, this little icon here, you can click here, and if you happen to upload your swim like I did last week, I uploaded a backstroke as a freestyle, which was pretty stupid of me. You can go and change here. You can change it if you get it wrong, and you can also change the pool if you've uploaded it for a 50 and it should be for a 25, or vice versa. Hopefully that sort of settles a few things, explains a few things. As usual, any questions, don't hesitate, drop us a line at support@eolab.com.